happy for the extent of support that you and everyone who is joining today has accorded us. So today we are going to talk on a very interesting topic, which I believe is quite a transformational topic for everyone. So today we'll be tackling emotional intelligence, and I believe it is the secret engine for effective leadership and teamwork. So my name is Peter, and I'll be your moderator for the day. And I am so thrilled to see so many of you here from all over. So I'll start this webinar by a question, and I'll want you to show your hands, but not necessarily through a physical show of your hand, but I want you to raise your hand mentally. And how many of you have ever, one, been in a meeting where tension was so high and you wished you could read the room better, or had to lead your team through a tough period of change or uncertainty, or wanted to build a stronger, more trusting, and genuinely collaborative team culture? If you nodded yes to any of those questions, then you're in the right place, because definitely today we'll be tackling the single most critical skill set that separates one good leaders from truly great ones. And we want to ensure that from today's webinar, we're able to have functional teams from all walks of life. And that's why we are going to tackle the big giant in the room, which is the emotional intelligence. We realize that mostly in our workplace today, their technical skills get you in the door, but when it comes to emotional quotient, our ability to understand and manage our emotions and connect with the emotions of others is far-fetched and something that not so many are good at it. But today we have an expert who will help us decipher and decode all these, what is emotional intelligence, what is emotional quotient, and all that. And today we'll be delving into some of the key things. That is, we'll discover practical ways to boost your self-awareness and master your emotional responses, especially when under pressure. We'll again be able to unpack how to build genuine empathy and trust. That is the absolute bedrock of seamless collaboration. And then we learn how to harness emotional intelligence to not only enhance teamwork and productivity, but to also become the calm, confident leader who can guide others through any storm of change or uncertainty. So, with us today, as I said, we have an expert who is good at it. We have Kevin. You know him, he has been here before. You liked him, and we are happy that he's able to deliver. He's done leadership coaching. He's such a good organizational psychologist. He has a great passion of helping professionals and teams so that they can unlock their potential. And he's the best fit to take us through today's session. So the structure of this webinar, as always, we'll have our speaker, who is Kevin, to take us through the first 45 minutes. Normally, we do this webinar for 1 hour and 15 minutes, thereabout. So for the first 45 to 1 hour, Kevin will jump in, will take us through what he has prepared for the day. And then after that, we'll have a session for question and answers. But that doesn't mean that you still need to wait until that session is open, because we've said it endless times. It's not a lecture. It's professionals who are meeting fellow professionals to exchange ideas. And so just feel free to jump in, ask questions, either on the chat box, raise your hand, and we're able to see you. We're able to give you a chance to talk and to interject. So feel free to do that. But more importantly, again, is to remind you that today's webinar is brought to you by ACCUREX. ACCUREX, we are a HR consulting firm, and we thrive best in HR consulting, in recruitment, in payroll management, in training, and such kind of trainings that we've been doing for you through this webinar series. And we have like a whole stack of HR services for your organization. So I'm really excited to introduce Kevin. Kevin, now the virtual floor is yours. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Peter. You can give him a round of applause for that excellent introduction. I'm very glad to be here. Very happy to be here. So I will just like to start with a brief overview of the content. But before I go over the content, let me just ask, and feel free, you can comment in the chat box, or you can raise your hands as well, and we can pick you. I'd like to ask a question and want a response. Do emotions have a place when it comes to issues of business or work? Do emotions have a place? What is your feeling? Do you have a place for emotions when it comes to issues of work? So you can just raise your hand, or you can even comment in the chat box to give me a response on the same. Yes? Yes, Dorothy, you're of the same opinion that emotions have a place. Okay. And do you have anybody ever heard of the comment? Has anybody ever heard the comment that we are too emotional? You need to be logical. Because those are the other things that we've noticed in terms of, has anybody ever encountered something? Yes, Jacqueline Masaba, you're saying yes, emotions do have a place in the workplace. Okay. So at least we are conversant in terms of that. Okay. So now I'll just go through the content so that we can know what we are saying when we say that emotions do have a place in the workplace, and there are things to consider and factor in. We'll look at our training objectives today. We'll look at the significance of emotional intelligence. We look at the core components. And do let me know if everybody can see my screen, because I think sometimes
Yes,
okay.
Kevin,
You can see my screen?
We can see you, but we can see your screen. Maybe,
Okay.
Yeah, now we
Okay.
can.
Yes, yes, yes. Now you can. Sorry about that. Yes, yes. Sometimes I think I logged off. Okay, now we are back again in business. So thank you for that confirmation, Peter. So yes, I was saying we look at the content based on training objectives. We look at the significance of emotional intelligence. We look at the core components of emotional intelligence. We can look also at the building emotional intelligence in the workplace. And then we'll have our session for Q&A. It will be a brief interactive session. And in between, I will also have some activities that you can give my responses through the chat box. And I will be looking at them also. Thank you very much,
Yes,
Sami.
Kevin, we
Yes.
have Sami. Sami
Yes.
said, responding to your earlier question, he said, yes, emotions absolutely have a place in the workplace because people bring their whole selves to work. Emotions influence how we make decisions, solve problems, communicate, and build relationships.
Yeah, very expertly put. Yes, and that's one of the things we tend to forget. We say this is work, this is not personal. This is work, it's just business. This is work, keep your emotions out of it. And sometimes, so those are the usual comments you hear. Okay, thank you very much for that, Sami. Now, What do you think about this comment? And you can let me know. Emotional intelligence is the ability to make emotions work for you instead of against you. That emotional intelligence, what is your understanding? Emotional intelligence is the ability to make emotions work for you instead of against you. Are there instances when emotions can be work against us? Have we ever experienced something of that effect? Has any one of us ever seen that? Feel free to comment on the chat box and I will follow with the responses later on. And so this is a statement that was made by Daniel Goleman, and he's the pioneer when it comes to issues of emotional intelligence. He's the pioneer psychologist, and he was the one who even popularized the practical applications of emotional intelligence in the workplace. And he's sort of like the guru. And his book is one of the best sellers, and I will advocate for everyone. He has even a lot of presentations he's done on YouTube on the same. So, like going straight to our training objectives. Number one, we want to understand the concept of emotional intelligence today. We want to explore how emotional intelligence will play a role in our leadership and teamwork. We want to learn the 5 core components of emotional intelligence. We want to also develop strategies to apply in our daily work, strategies to apply in emotional intelligence in our daily work, that is. And then finally, we want to strengthen through all this, we'll hope to have been able to learn how we can strengthen collaboration and team performance. Yeah. So before I go to the significance, based on my earlier question, I see Dorothy there has answered to me and said yes. Our when issues of how, especially how we react to them, how we react to situations. Emotions can actually act against our favor, or or can act against us or for us, depending on how we react to issues. And then there is Barbara, and she's commented very well. Emotions like anger can advance or derail your goals depending on how you manage them. There are instances where I've seen anger get success, especially when the boss is angry. Everybody seems to deliver in certain situations, but not always, I've come to realize. Okay, moving very swiftly to significance of our emotional intelligence. So by this, I think we first and foremost, before even we go to anything, we need to define what emotional intelligence is. I will abbreviate it as EI for now. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions while influencing and responding effectively to others. Key things I'd want us to note in this definition is the ability not only to recognize, understand, and manage our own, not external. They're not external from us. It's our own emotions that we want to be able to manage. That we want to be able to manage, and then we influence while others, and we respond to others. So we want to inspire others based on how we are managing our own emotions. Can you let me know if I'm still online? I'm seeing here a message of. Am I online?
Yes, 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 Kevin,
Okay,
you are.
sorry. I got a message of low internet connection. Thank you very much. So we see the key issue here is our emotions, not external. Yeah. And I'll go on to say it differs from intelligent quotient, with intelligent quotient being primarily the measure of our cognitive abilities. And these entail matters such as logical reasoning, problem solving, and analytical skills. The saying goes that your IQ will help you get the job, and your emotional intelligence will help you keep the job. So getting the job shows, yes, you are competent, you have the knowledge, you have the skills in terms of if we put you there, you'll be able to deliver. Keeping the job now means how do you relate? How do you work with people? How can you make sure if it's issues of dealing with customers, you deal with personnel in appropriate way that make sure that they come back to the organization. Yeah. So emotional intelligence matters in leadership and teamwork because one, it builds trust and stronger relationships. Mhm. And we'll see how later on in greater detail. It improves communication and collaboration. It enhances conflict resolution. And we have examples of that. If we are told, especially when you are two people arguing, and both of you are are have their voices are up in terms of everyone is shouting, both parties are shouting. There's a likelihood that that conflict will keep on escalating, and sometimes it can escalate to the point of blows and violence. So, how you manage in terms of the response when somebody is shouting at you, that is a very, very important skill to have. And we'll look at how we can do that going forward. It will also help to boost motivation and morale. That is, by boosting motivation and morale is uh, making people be able to work with an attitude of positivity. Yeah, a nice environment, a good working environment, a friendly working environment. And as much as most of us say work is work and personal life is personal life, sometimes we cannot keep out the aspect that sometimes our personal life will still percolate into our work life. So that is one key aspect also that will come to realize in terms of why it is significant to be able to have a better understanding of emotional intelligence. And finally, it will drive organizational performance. And we'll see this now when we get into the nitty-gritties of, okay, how does emotional intelligence help me learn how to work better with people? And by working with people, how does it make me to be a more productive individual and henceforth also help to, better the organization in terms of its output? Mm. So that will get into that. Okay. Usually I like to enter into statistics because data is the new oil, as people say. And statistics help us to get a better understanding as to why we study the things we study or why we need to gain the skills that we want to gain. It is given, and feel free to query me on the statistics. Or it is said that from my source that I went on my research, and I found that we have over 400 emotional experiences every single day. That is the theory, that we have over 400 emotional experiences every single day. By that they mean, okay, from morning once you wake up, you are already starting with the first emotion. It could be joy, it could be sadness, it could be happiness, it could be tiredness, or it could be you're feeling refreshed, and your face can envision that. And this one person put it to the test in terms of when you smile out in the morning, people respond and they smile back at you. Okay. It is said that only 36% of people in the world are emotionally intelligent. Only 36 people in the world are emotionally intelligent. So this is you can see less than 50% in this world are emotionally intelligent. Less than 50%. That is a very, very small number. Finally, let me just put myself on mute kidogo. I need to switch. Apologies for that. Am I back online?
Yes, Kevin, you are.
Sorry. There was an emergency I had to address, but I've finished. So I was saying, okay, let me go back to sharing the screen. Okay. So only 36% of people in the world are emotionally intelligent. So this is less than 50%. So you can see there's still a lot of room based on the statistics that is out there in terms of the need to garner emotional intelligence. 75% of managers assess an employee's emotional intelligence before they decide whether to promote them. So this is a big basis in terms of advancing in careers, as well as even determining whether our staff can advance in their career. 75%. 95% of the people think they are self-aware, but only 10 to 15% are. By 95% of the people, you can see every one of us perceive themselves as being emotional intelligence. All of us perceive ourselves as being emotional intelligent. Yet we are told only, or rather self-aware, sorry. All of us perceive ourselves that we know ourselves, we know how we react in situations. We think we present the best versions of ourselves in any situation. However, only 10 to 15% are able to react in a manner that is conversant with what needs to be done. Yeah. And then we have been told that companies that have emotional intelligence intervention in the workplace have observed a reduced employee turnover of 63%. So if an organization has an issue with staff retention, we can see that the main issue will be, ideally, issues around emotional intelligence. Maybe that could be the key issue that is causing your staff to keep on, employees to keep on changing. And then there's only 42% of organizations provide specific training to help employees to build and nurture emotional intelligence. So there's still a need to show why it is important, why this is a key issue to be addressed by organizations, that is, matters of emotional intelligence. They still need to advocate more and more for people to go for specific trainings under this. And it's all to the benefit of the organization, as we'll see later on. And then finally, to one of what I consider to be a very controversial point, and kindly, it's not me who's saying, it's the statistics that's out there. So I usually get a lot of backlash. Women are more emotionally intelligent than men. And let me just cite my source at that point. This is the organization is called Apollo Technical Engineer Talent Acquisition, and they did a research, and that was their finding. So kindly, men, do not bash me for giving that bit of information. However, that having been said, this is more findings based on statistics, but it's the expectation, but it might not be the norm or the rule. But this is what is expected generally. Yeah. So we move on to the next point, to the next slide, sorry. So these will be the core components of emotional intelligence. So there are usually 5 in number, and the key components of this emotional intelligence were developed by Daniel Goleman. And earlier I shared a photo of him so that you can know who I'm speaking about when I'm referring to. So Daniel Goleman is considered to be like the utmost, the guru so far when it comes to matters of emotional intelligence. So for him, he spoke about these 5 components, and I'll go into greater detail as we continue the following slides. Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills. If you are in my previous sessions or training sessions, you might be seeing that there are similarities around certain things. when you are talking about issues of morale, issues of motivation, issues of performance, issues of retention. And somehow empathy and social skills always seem to come up, to pop up every once in a while when you're dealing with anything, things around retention, morale, and performance. So those are key components that we find that be recurring in different circles. Yeah. So self-awareness. What is self-awareness? They say it is the ability to recognize our own emotions. By that in itself, it means, are we able to, before we react to situations, are we able to say, okay, this is how I'm feeling? Do I react in the way I'm feeling, or how can I communicate it better based on what I'm feeling? That is, you try and have a filter before before you communicate. We've had instances of a common term that is said that we are naongea bila filter. That person is talking without filters, as in they give you as it is. And sometimes it's very interesting. It could be a cultural thing, in terms of, you might think that people are being emotional, but it's actually in their culture they are taught to be straight, keep it Dutch, so to speak. And if you've had encounters with the Dutch, you'll find that they're never being rude, but it's just that they say they're being straight. So culture might also play a factor there. So one of the things to be self-aware is to know your strengths and weaknesses. If I am to ask out of the bat about our strengths, very many of us will say, will share them very freely and say, these are my strengths. This is what I'm good at. I'm good at this and the other and the other. However, when it comes to weaknesses, we are taught to talk about your weaknesses as a point of, as a strength as well. That is usually the norm. However, there are aspects of, like for me, for instance, I can say my strength will be very easily that I am very diverse when it comes to offering solutions to problems. I can think of alternatives. I can think strategically. I can think of all that. However, when it comes to my weaknesses, I rarely do put it out there. But because of the same strength, it can serve as my weakness. That is, in the same way that I can think of different things at the same time, it's the same way that I find myself being engaged in 10 different projects at the same time, and all of them demanding my 100% attention. So you have no balance. And sometimes you find that you don't give your best work because you are always thinking of a new solution, a new strategy, and the like. So sometimes we find that we sell ourselves short of saying what our strengths are and our weaknesses are. Secondly, recognize emotional triggers. And emotional triggers sometimes in the workplace, and you can maybe by a show of hand, you can tell me, do you find that your emotional trigger is more of a person than a feeling? That there are people when you see, you just feel like you're triggered towards either being defensive. Yeah, Barbara, I see. And Wilfred. So you find that our emotional triggers sometimes are not how we are feeling, but when somebody shows up is when the trigger comes in. So that's why we're saying that part of emotional intelligence is how our own emotions, it's not somebody else. It's not about the issue of how does somebody make you feel, but when you feel like that, how do you react? So others could be issues of workload stress, and could be issues of criticism, perceived unfairness, lack of recognition, and micromanagement. Yeah. Mm. So sometimes you find that those are the things that we say they really try your emotional intelligence at that point. Mm. Practice reflection. By practicing reflection, we're looking at issues of, do I journal? Do I get feedback? And how do I take the feedback that I get? For instance, sometimes you find that there are instances where we are always moving. One day, every day is like a rat race. We don't have time to reflect. We don't have time to look back at, okay, how did I handle the certain situation? What did I do well? What did I not do very well? And it helps when you have your peers the thing I like about ACCUREX is after every training, they do give you direct feedback and they tell you, okay, this you did okay, this one you did not do okay, or something of the sort. Yeah. So there are those aspects of things you look at in terms of when you're getting the feedback, how do you take it and how do you react to it as well? So right now, being matters of self-awareness, I would like us to do just a brief activity, and it could be, you can just note down one of the emotional trigger, and even during the Q&A section, you can come back to it. In terms of, or even during this session after this slide, we can go back to it and say, okay, these are the things we are noticing as our emotional triggers that you experience at work. You can just share one and say, under self, this is an emotional trigger experience. And then we can always see, are they similar to others, what others are experiencing? Are they unique to you? And is there something that is quite different in terms of how you experience it as compared to others? Because something that for you might be a trigger, for somebody else might be the fuel to make them succeed. And you can feel free to put up your hand if you want to also comment on the same, or you can just put a note in the comment in the chat box. Yeah. So allow me to continue to the next slide. Yeah. I see Barbara has already started and mentioned criticism. Nobody wants to be criticized, but they say it's positive criticism. I don't know how many people have heard that this is a positive criticism. And when somebody tells you positive criticism and then they go with the negatives, they tell you, they say it's positive criticism, but they tell you the negatives of what you've done. You've done bad. Not that, okay, in this sense, this is what you could improve on and the like. Okay. So we move to the next key aspect of emotional intelligence when you're talking about it is self-regulation. And then for self-regulation in action, we're looking at our ability to manage the impulses and reaction. Yeah, it's the ability to manage. Now at this point, you're at the point of, okay, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I feel I'm pushed towards. Yeah. So at this point, you're like, okay, how can I manage that aspect of let me react instantly? I remember I used to work for an organization, and the head of the organization would always insist on give it to people straight. Don't even let them leave the door. If somebody says something, you respond immediately. So what will happen is during meetings, it will be like a crossfire session of back and forth of departments accusing the other. So everybody will go with facts about which department has not done very well so that they can come with it to the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we'll find that we're not resolving anything. We're just going back to accuse each other of the same. So one of the key aspects of self-regulation is staying calm under pressure. And this is one of those things that we've come to realize. It's a skill that you constantly have to try and hone. There's no point in time you can say you're perfectly at that point, not unless, I don't know for the Buddhist monk, whether they achieve the state of Zen, where nobody seems to bother them, nobody seems to distract them from the purpose of meditation. But one action is trying to stay calm under pressure. Yeah. Another one is trying to adapt to change, and change sometimes might be very difficult to adapt to. And we see this especially when there's change in management or there are change in company policies. The instant our instant reaction is usually to, if it's not quote unquote in our favor, it's usually to retaliate against, not to find out, okay, what is the reason or the rationale behind the change. We feel like management is coming now, or the term is usually used ni sasa nyinyi watu wa ofisi mmeamua kutunyanyasa, especially if you are a field staff. That is the term that is usually put out there. Yeah. And the other aspect is to avoid emotional outbursts. This is a very, very tricky situation depending on the circumstances you are in. We all would like to to act like, yes, when things are when we're in turmoil, we can still manage our emotions and we can still be rational. But sometimes, uh, so to speak, the term that nowadays people use is umegusa mlima. Hiyo ndo mlima yangu. Hapo ndo umenigusa. So people react very fast and very emotionally when certain things happen to them, depending on the situation, especially if it feels like it's personal. So self-regulation might mean you try and avoid that emotional outburst as people are talking. And a good tip to do all of this when it comes to matters of self-regulation is to pause, breathe. Usually they advise you breathe in and try to count to 5 and then respond. And sometimes it's very hard because when somebody is in the middle of a point criticizing you and saying you haven't done anything, you are not breathing at that time, you are fuming, which is very different from breathing. I'll go to the comment section kidogo. I see, yes, I'm seeing contributions zako za hapo umeban. Yes, I acknowledge. Thank you for the feedback. There is one where I work where he enters the room. I feel angry. That is Wilfred Achachi. He says there's a colleague who enters the room and he feels very angry. So at that point, it could be, it could be based on a previous experience, I'm sure, or it could be based on something the colleague does. But we will say, we try and see how do we manage our feelings inside. It's about him. Barbara, you mentioned criticism is a big issue for you. That's the thing that can cause you to not in terms of your self-awareness at that point. I think you're mentioning issues of criticism. You're self-aware that is a critical bit. When people touch it, that you feel like you can get angered very easily. Rebecca mentions when my ideas are dismissed, especially where money is involved. Where money is involved. That is very true. The mambo ya pesa is very sensitive. Yeah. And especially when all of a sudden you are told to contribute to something you haven't been privy to. Contributed in terms of monetary contribution to something you haven't been privy to the conversations. Washington, you talk about self-regulation. Thank you very much. And you say it's a skill we use to manage our emotions at the moment that an event happens. Good news or bad news? Yeah, and you've come to the very recent issue of Harambee Stars losing on penalties. Bruno Fernandes. It wasn't a very good weekend for you. Bruno Fernandes shooting stars over the weekend. Only two out of two. Motivation, which is one of the key, one of the factors that you're looking at when you're looking at aspects of emotional intelligence. And when it comes to motivation in action, we're looking at aspects of how do you drive yourself towards a particular goals. What is your self-drive, so to speak? What makes you wake up and feel inspired to come into the office in the morning? One of those keys, we have personal goals and then we have team goals. By team goals, those could be departmental goals or within an organization, or that could be, if it's a small organization, it's the whole organizational goal. Maybe it's a goal to make a million Kenya shillings worth of sales this year. But from that, you move down and say, what is our team goal every week? How much are we supposed to make in terms of sales as a team? And then for you, what personal goal have you set yourself for yourself in terms of achieving this 1 million in terms of sales turnover? Yeah. Mm-hmm. in terms of 1 million in sales turnover at the end of the year. However, if you don't set your personal goal in itself, then any sale you make today will be fine. If I make one sale, it's fine. If I make two sales in terms of a 20 bob, that is fine. But if I have set, if I know what the goals are and I've set my personal goal, then it means I know that for our team to make maybe 1,000 in sales, and you are a team of 10. So for our team, we need to make 1,000 in sales for the month, and we say that by the end of the month we'll be at what that is 1.2 million in sales. So I mean 100,000 in sales for the month. Then you multiply by the 12 month, that we are at 1.2. So that means even for me personally, I need to contribute towards that 100,000. So you move from the bigger chunk, it's like eating an elephant, and you come now to the specific, one bite at a time. So you don't just eat the whole elephant, you eat it one bite every day, and you're monitoring. And what happens is you feel motivated when you start achieving some of that goal. And then staying positive in setbacks. This is usually a very huge challenge when it comes to aspects of morale and finally, consequently, emotional intelligence. The individuals who are overly optimistic, and you cannot put them down. Yeah, there's somebody who you give a comment to, and they'll give you something back in positivity and change it to a positive. The full, the cup is half full mentality, not half empty mentality. And some of these individuals are very spirited, and when you hang around them, you find yourself also moving towards the same. That the setbacks, he says, okay, this is a minor setback, but we're able to learn. And most organizations are able to grow through such initiatives. Celebrate small wins. This is a very key factor. As Rebecca had mentioned, sometimes even recognition comes in those small wins. That yes, this is something I've done, and somebody mentions you by name. Yes, so and so did this today. Let's clap for them. It could be even an aspect of coming early to work. Those are those things that sometimes we forget about, but they are very, very key. And some of them could be just even an aspect of saying, without you, this will not have been possible. Yeah. Or thank you very much that we were in a bind here, and then you helped us. Yeah, by sending that email that I hadn't, sending that email with the attachment that I forgot to attach. Thank you very much for sending it, because you managed to meet the deadline. So those are small things that people have done, but you celebrate them in a big way to show that this had massive repercussions in the long run. I will leave an activity for you to do, and you can put it in the comment section. We'll revisit in the Q&A. And that could be, can you share perhaps a recent challenge that you might have experienced, and maybe how you stay motivated? And one could be the aspects of, it could be personal, as Washington has put out in terms of Harambee Stars. I don't know whether they still stayed motivated, but I like the fact that even when they lost, the Kenyans were still positive. Granted that we had a common enemy, quoted in terms of Tanzania, to keep us motivated after the match. But yes, those are the things I'm thinking about. Okay. So now we move on to the next aspect when it comes to emotional intelligence, and that is empathy. And empathy recurs on a regular, and this is our ability to understand others' emotions. So one of those things that we have to do when we want to understand emotions from others is active listening. And this means listening to understand, not just reply. And it's always said that you can hear, but not listen. Like, I'm hearing you, but I'm not listening to what you're saying, because I'm waiting to put out my words out there. It's seeing things from other people's perspectives. That is, try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and what they're experiencing. It's also the aspect of you support colleagues in stress or conflict. This is mainly an aspect of when there's a Swahili saying that say, "Akufai kwa dhiki ndiye rafiki." A friend in need is a friend indeed. When I need you the most and you come through for me, I will appreciate you even more. And it's those small subtle things that we forget, but they are very important. So I will not dwell too much on this because I know we've repeated a lot of emphasis also in past trainings, but those are some of those aspects of things that we need to be able to see things from other people's eyes, not just be condemning and not understanding where they're coming from. And a mini exercise at this point, I will just say for us will be to practice paraphrasing people's or what somebody is saying, because then this is an exercise you can do on a regular. In terms of when somebody says something, to seek whether you have understood it, you can say it back to them in a different way. And this is a mini exercise that I propose even not only just here, but also for you in the workplace. An example by this I will mean is, for instance, if I get an employee, or if a HR person gets an employee giving the feedback saying, this feedback, you've given me the feedback, but the feedback you've given me is quite unfair. And the thing to jump on is there are individuals who will tell you, you can choose how to take it. This is, you can choose to take it positively or negatively. But sometimes it's good to think, how can I paraphrase this? And a good way I found of paraphrasing is, do you feel that the feedback didn't reflect your actual performance fairly? Or you feel the feedback didn't reflect your actual performance fairly? Correct? As in, you are now engaging the person in terms of, it's about your performance that you are talking about first and foremost. It's not about you. And did I not fairly evaluate that performance? And if I not, am I correct in understanding that that is the issue here? So that even the person feels like, oh, they're not being personal against what I've done, or it's not personal against me as a person, or me as Kevin. This is feedback generally based on, these are the things that happen, and based on the things that happen, yes, have you rectified or have you not rectified the same issue? Okay. At this point, I would like to share a quote from one of the famous guys, and called Dan Carnegie. And this, he's responsible for writing a book called How to Make Friends and Influence People. One of the bestsellers out there. And he says, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. So he brings that aspect of, when it comes to empathy, let those people talk more about themselves, because then people realize you're more of a friend, and they'll say you're the best friend they ever had, and you never even uttered a word. So that is a food for thought for us going forward. Okay. Social skills in action. Most of us, when we are thinking about emotional intelligence, um, we do not think about our own ability to build positive relationships. Some of us say, I'm good at making friends, or some of us say, no, that's not my niche. I am not so good at talking. But as you see, Dale Carnegie told us up there, sometimes it's about just listening and asking the person about themselves. And through that, they feel like you are a friend indeed. So if you want to build those positive relationships, this is how you can do it. You can have an aspect of clear, respectful communication. By that it means that, how do I talk to people? What tone do I interact with them in? And am I respectful in the words that I'm using? Based on that, do I also focus on building trust and a rapport? Is it just talking for talking purposes, just to avoid aspects of silence in the room? Or am I trying to get and engage them in terms of what are their interests, knowing, okay, listen, what are they saying? Okay, and then trying to remember, okay, this is something they like, this is something they don't like. So I'm creating something of a rapport, and a rapport could be as easy as saying, I know you don't like this and this and aspect, but what if we do this and the like? And something of that. It shows that there's that aspect of you had them and you're going back to them. Managing conflict constructively. This is usually very tricky to do, especially when it's personal, as I mentioned before. But if you can manage it in form that you build what you have, instead of putting each other down. So by that, it means that, yes, we are in conflict, but how can we work towards this? Okay, so we don't agree on this and this. What do we agree on this matter? So we look at more of the positives during times of disagreement. And then finally, through that, we are hoping that if we always target to inspire and influence others, then it means that even our actions will look at aspects of positivity. that will move from aspects of just doing things for the sake of doing things. Yes. So at this point, we've finished those 5 aspects of emotional intelligence. Now we are moving to those key issues now. When it comes to leadership, what helps when I have a high emotional intelligence as a leader? Yeah. And one of them is inspire trust and loyalty. You find that leaders who, without much ado, the people are loyal to them to a T, that they will not leave them. And I'm not talking about political leaders for now. I will put politics out of this. That you find that there are those leaders who, even when you can say the money aspect is removed from an organization, people still follow them. And they're like inspirational CEOs, for instance. Those are the aspects of high emotionally intelligent leaders that the people will actually follow them and trust, in terms of that even when this doesn't work out, a leader will not throw us under the bus or abandon us. Yeah. Leaders with high emotional intelligence communicate vision effectively. They let you know where they want to head. It's not a secret that they keep to unto themselves. And for you, you now have to figure it out. I don't know whether you've had instances where a boss is asking for a document, but you do not know to what end he needs it or she needs it. And when you send it to them via email, they tell you this is completely wrong. Yeah. But then you do not know what they need it for, but you're like, this is the document you asked for. But the content in itself, however, if I tell you, okay, I'm trying to pitch for this and this and that, or maybe it's a government body I'm trying to pitch for, there are certain aspects they need from us. So can we tweak whatever proposal or whatever profile you have to show that, yes, we have worked with other government entities before, or parastatals in that sense. So they show that we have experience from the past. I might be pitching a document to a parastatal, and I'm presenting a private sector document. And then resolve conflicts fairly. I don't know whether it's only my experience or some of us have seen this, that when a boss, when you're having a general meeting and maybe it's a boss addressing something that we haven't done, or a manager addressing something that we didn't do as a team, and when the manager is addressing it to individuals and is saying, this is what you didn't do, this is what you didn't do, and all of a sudden there's a shift. When a manager talks to your colleague, the tone of voice changes, they become more friendlier, and then they start smiling to your colleague, and you notice that it's something that is recurring. It will bring an aspect of, is the manager treating us fairly? You'll get that aspect of, oh, that is so and so's person. For us, as we are the legitimate children of the organization. So when you hear such comments happening within an organization, that means there's always that aspect of, maybe we're not being treated rightly or fairly in that matter. So that already shows there is need for some emotional intelligence to be applied in those in such a situation. And then finally is, do we emotionally leaders with high emotional intelligence motivate their teams? Yes, in terms of they do not they make you feel like you want to come to work. They don't come to work and you feel like, I wish so and so did not come to work, or you're always waiting to hear so and so is sick or ill. One of the leaders with high emotional intelligence, for example, is Nelson Mandela, the late. And from him, he had a quote that said, lead from the back and let others believe that you're in front. That is, as in things are just moving and people are like, okay, when people are asked, how comes you guys have meaning? Who's your CEO? Who's your manager? They never see the CEO at the forefront, but you guys, the employees, are always moved towards production. They're always moved towards achievement. And that is one thing that Nelson Mandela exemplified very much in his leadership. And even from his prison years, where to be able to negotiate with the wardens at that time during apartheid, he decided to learn Afrikaans so that he can speak to them in their language. And through speaking to them in their language, he was able to solicit certain favors from the guards there at Robben Island. So those are small things, but they are very big things, because in the background, the leader is thinking very hard strategically. How can I do this? How can I get people more in terms of on my team, and to get the ends that I want? Okay. So after leadership, we look at the aspect of teamwork as well, because we need to have strong teams that are emotionally intelligent. But how does that help our team when we're emotionally intelligent? So in teamwork, emotional intelligence will help us first and foremost foster collaboration. By that, it means that we're able now to work on projects easier and faster, because you don't feel like so and so will go and put out your business, or so and so is not my friend. Because even if so and so people are saying they're negative, when you go to them, they are very helpful. I don't know whether you've had an experience where the person they say is the worst turns out, and you go and approach them and you find out they're the best and they help you very much, because everybody's always avoiding them. But when you just employ a bit of emotional intelligence, where you go and you smile and you tell them, okay, so I'm thinking about this and this, and I hear you're the utmost expert on this and this and this. You've already acknowledged the person. Now you move on to aspect of, can you help me in this and this project that we are struggling with? Then you find that they're collaborating to you, and you are likely to achieve your successes even better. The second aspect is, when you have a team that is emotionally intelligent, it reduces tension and misunderstandings. Then it reduces tension in the sense that people don't feel like somebody is out to get me. And sometimes you get that aspect of politics in the workplace, where somebody's handed a project, and since they commented negatively when you did your project, now we also wait for them to do the same and wait for them to fail. But when you have an aspect of emotional intelligence, and the team is also emotionally intelligent, and they can give proper feedback in the proper manner, and they can help each other when it comes to the challenges or they're facing, and they can openly communicate where their weaknesses lie, then those misunderstandings are avoided and there's less tension. So that means even productivity increases. Finally, there's an aspect of, can we also improve creativity and problem solving? Because with a team that is highly emotional intelligent, there's aspect of, if I come with my idea, it will not be dismissed. And that is one of those aspects we've seen, that when an idea is dismissed, it might make people very reactive. I have an example of a very good manager who, he will sit in meetings and any single point contributed, he will be noting it down. Every single point somebody will contribute, even things such as that will look mundane, and somebody will say, okay, we've noticed when you're served office tea, there's not enough sugar in the tea. He will note that down. And I kept on wondering, why will he note it down? He's like, so later on, when I will speak to the manager, he will tell me that everybody's point is valid and is important. And when people see that you are putting down their point, and in the next meeting, you will come and ask so and so, is there enough now sugar in your tea? Or do you feel like your issue has been addressed? They will feel like, okay, so I can also help in terms of give my ideas when you are looking for other aspects of problem solving. It won't be dismissed. And then an emotionally intelligent team will strengthen, teamwork. A team that has emotional intelligence will strengthen the team's resilience. So that means that in case anything comes your way, you're all together. You're only as strong as your weakest, weakest link. So Amita Sambaratika, you will not fall apart when things don't go your way, so to speak. Now, to the last or second last aspect of my slide, which is building emotional intelligence in the workplace. So for this, I will say we should encourage self-awareness practices. And we mentioned it up there when we were discussing journaling, meditation, and time out sessions. That taking time out just to reflect on how did the session go, how was it, not jumping from one session to another continuously. We should provide feedback loops. Feedback loops are continuous systematic processes of gathering information from customers or employees. By that, once you gather that information, you are analyzing and taking it. So it's just an aspect of what was the feedback you gave from what I've done, and let me analyze and let me change it better. Where did I mess up based on the feedback loop I've gotten from my colleagues? Okay, what caused what happened? And how can I avoid it? In fact, where did I not plan properly? Okay, if there was an emergency, how did it arise? How can I manage it better next time so that it doesn't become a recurrent feature? Yeah. So it's the same also in our organizations. We need to have those contact feedback loops, and those help us to show okay, we need to change this better. I need to address this better. I need to talk about this better. And then train in active listening and empathy. By that, it means it could be even role-playing sessions or even professional training, such as the one that ACCUREX offers. And that could be by role-playing, you're already preempting a situation where, in case it happens, you are trying to better yourselves on a regular. And this is something we don't do often. And it could even be just taking 5 minutes off with a colleague and saying, okay, let me see if I'm going to address a client issue. If the client started criticizing our product on 1 to 3 things, how will I react to it first and foremost? And like, okay, sir. So if a colleague, if I want to present my feedback to a colleague based on something I did, I think they could have been done that. How do I present that as well? And then finally, we look at issues of create psychologically safe work environments. Let's make our workspaces be a safe space. Let's not feel like we're going to be emotionally drained every time that we see Mondays are approaching and we are living very energetic on a Friday. Let our workplaces be where we look forward to going every morning. And the workplaces comprises of the people who are there. So let us try and each other try and make each other think in terms of I'm inspired, I'm motivated to go. I have an idea, I just want to run it through. Yeah. So the key takeaways from this ideally will be first and foremost, emotional intelligence is critical for leadership and teamwork success. There are 5 components around it, and self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. We need to practice emotional intelligence daily to strengthen leadership and collaboration. The teams with high emotional intelligence always outperform teams with only high IQ. Yes, it does not mean high IQ will always lead to greater result or high performance. And with that, I want to move on to our Q&A session. And I thank you very much for participating in this session with me. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was
Yes.
quite insightful.
Yes.
I think you've really hacked it, and you've addressed key components when it comes to emotional intelligence, and that was quite incredible for even the wealth of practical knowledge that you just shared with us. So I think on my part, I truly resonate with Washington.
Yes.
He must have he must be a Manchester United fan, but I think he should learn from the emotional intelligence that our fellow Arsenal fans have.
Yes.
But on part of self-regulation, that for me is such a key component of emotional intelligence. So
Yes.
knowing how and when to react. But again, on my part, I had some takeaway points as well, so which
Yes.
maybe I can just share with the team,
Yeah.
and I know they can really come in handy. And one of them, now that we are leaders in our own levels, we need to pause before we respond. Okay, so like pausing, then we respond. This is just taking an intentional pause between a trigger, because at times something is said, something is done, and automatically you get those triggers, and through the triggers you can end up reacting. So pausing between, just taking those intentional pauses before you do any action, that's really important. Of course, taking a pause does not really mean that you're suppressing your emotions, but rather it's just choosing a path of knowing how to address or respond to a particular conversation or whatever is coming up at that particular point. Then, of course, the other thing I take away point for all of us is curiosity over judgment. So when maybe, for example, our colleagues or our reportees, they feel frustrated over processes, over anything that is happening, then you just don't go and escalate even the matters even the more. So at times it's important to first of all be a bit curious on what could have resulted them to be doing this or to be arguing it in this particular manner, because out of that you become even more insightful and know that these the actual root cause are not what maybe you had initially overjudged. So, and the other thing is name it to tame it. Just saying things as they are when they start maybe a transition process within the organization. Everyone feels anxiety and all that. Just name things as they are, because out of saying things in green, in black and white, that is, other than keeping people in to be so green about the processes or what things are happening, it becomes a bit hard to make them understand. But naming things as they are so that you're able to tame it even beforehand, that's some form of preparing people emotionally and just making them become to withstand the test of time. So basically, those are my three takeaway points. So again, these to remind us that today's session again is brought to you by ACCUREX. ACCUREX, as I had said, is a HR consulting company, and we offer a full stack of services that pertains HR processes, that is employee processes at work. We're able to set up a HR department for your organization if you don't have one. We're able to coach and mentor some of the staff members who you think maybe they can take up some critical leadership roles within the organization. Call us. You're able to take out your team for team building, for team bonding. Let them have game nights. Let them connect away from work, away from the activities of work. We're able to help you recruit best talent in your organization. We have an in-house system that has applicant tracking system, and we're able to organize that. We're able to do payroll management for your organization. We're able to do outsourcing, label sourcing, and even offshoring. We have our system, People HRIS. You must try it. Is one of the best full stack end-to-end HR system. You should be in a position to talk to us and even get to know what People is and how it functions. Then we have an assortment of trainings, name it from leadership, from supervisory, soft skills, sales, customer service, emotional intelligence. Do you want to hear more about emotional intelligence in a broader picture other than what has been brought to us this morning? We're able to do all that. So that's us. We do these webinars every other Wednesday, and we've been doing it the whole of this year, and we still have 4 months to go to continue doing this. Join us, connect with your team, just loop us in. We're able to ensure that we're able to bring in as much details as possible. We have a feedback form that has just been shared. I think it is pinned on the chat box. Just click that feedback form. Tell us what you like most. What didn't you like most? Did you like our trainer today? Was he well polished than he was previously? That's some of the things that we need to know and be able to prepare even much better in future webinars. So just have that feedback form. If you need a certificate for this particular training, just indicate your name, how you want your name to read on that certificate. Just write it there. Give us any other feedback. Are there trainings that maybe you've not tackled and you think that they will come in handy? Just mention that. So with that feedback form, we're able to communicate to us and we're able to implement a number of the things that you shall bring on board. So I think at this juncture, we're able to tackle any other question there could be. I'm not sure if I've seen any other question.
I'm seeing Rebecca. Sammy had his hand up. I don't know. Sammy Mugaro. You had a hand up was up at one time.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe he has 70 billion.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, then I'll continue. You can just put your hand up. Rebecca, okay. Julius? Rebecca was asking, how do you identify triggers and ensure they do not harm others? Identifying triggers comes from that aspect of self-awareness that we were saying earlier. If you notice there is a pattern around certain things, a good example will be, let me say, political. Unfortunately, I'll use this, but politics. The individuals in politics you find, if a politician speaks and you know you're not in favor of the politician, there's that instant feeling that comes your way. That is a very good example of, that's your first trigger right there. That feeling that comes when you don't like something, you don't like an issue, you don't like someone. But then beforehand, how do you react to it? That's that point of, the more you start reflecting, the more you start thinking of, okay, every time this happens, this is how I react. Let me remember my opinion. I can still air it out, but not with my first initial emotional reaction. I can still say, okay, I don't like this person because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. We just saying I hate the person and the like. So that is the thing. Now you are being, and it's a constant exercise. It will not be an instant that you'll be perfect. So we expect that you learn. And then one aspect I will say is always try and self-reflect. Did I handle it better than the last time that I did it? And trust me, life will always throw its spanners in the works. So sometimes you might even be better and you can say, okay, so I've noticed that when I do this and this, I am able to react better. If I breathe in and breathe out, I'm able to do this better. So that, in a sense, prevents harm, as you're saying, because now you're able to think, okay, when I use these particular words, these are much dangerous. You know, there are those words that can be truthful, but they are very hurtful at the same time. And words such as hate, you can just avoid. You can just say, I dislike, which I dislike the aspect of this and that, and address. And when you don't address individuals, but you address more of actions or something they've done or not done, it's much easier to seem a bit less. It will have less of an harmful effect to others. Let me know if I've answered your question, Rebecca, by a show of a thumbs up, or if you still want to if you want me to emphasize on it. I think there's still time. Okay, very good. The training is insightful. Thank you for the feedback, Violet. Anthony Mshina says, please share PowerPoint. Okay, very good. Samuel Oko says, very insightful session. Thank you for that feedback. Thank you very much for that. Derek Kamau says, how can we quantify emotional quotient, that is emotional intelligence, yet there are matters relating to individual personality? How can we navigate the limitations of having introvert who prefer to work alone versus extrovert who are outgoing? So thank you very much for that question, Derek. The aspect of emotional intelligence is, first of all, you are aware. Everybody can say, I'm a sanguine, I'm an introvert, I'm melancholic, I'm choleric, I'm this and that. I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. You are aware you are an extrovert and you prefer working alone. However, there are those aspects of people will come and ask to work with you or for you to assist them on an issue. First and foremost is, what facial expression do you express? I don't know whether everybody can see me very clearly right now. So if by virtue of just practicing 5 minutes and smile, I know you are an introvert, but you can just try and smile. I can only see Peter. Peter, can you try and smile for us? Yeah. But by virtue of doing just a smile already, that's a bit of 50% of your work done. And those are some of those skills that we can even do and try and learn on a regular. Like, am I approachable? If I'm always, because for me, I have a serious face naturally. So when I'm concentrating on something, this is how I look. This is what I look like. So you can imagine trying to approach me on a difficult issue and I'm looking at you like this. So I try as much as I can to try and change my facial expression. So imagine, as an introvert, that's one half of your work done. And it's the people who are approaching you. So if they're approaching you, They are the ones who will do the talking. For you, you'll do the listening and see if you can assist and the same. And then through that, slowly and slowly, you can build towards being approachable. I don't know whether that has given you an insight, Derek. I hope so. Joyce comments, says, please share the PowerPoint. Okay, we'll talk to the team to share that. Thank you for taking time and to hold the session. I'm extending my gratitude to ACCUREX for the consistently planning the webinars. Okay. Thank you for, okay, Sawa. So I don't know, very insightful. Yes, thank you for the good job. Okay. Yes, Sami Mugaro has said, thank you for an insightful and engaging session on emotional intelligence for effective leadership and teamwork. I have gained practical strategies and self-awareness, self-regulation, and empathy that I can apply both personally and professionally. I appreciate your time, expertise, and knowledge shared. Thank you for that feedback, Sami. We appreciate it very much, very much. I'll hand it over to you at this point. Kindly allow me to hand it over to Peter.
All right. Thank you again, Kevin. And I must say, these are not just but theories. These are not Monday morning tools or Wednesday morning tools. These are practical elements that we have, and I know you've interacted with these things that we've just mentioned this morning. But once again, thank you so much to you all for the fantastic questions and even for the engagement that you brought about. It's because of you that these webinars are. And we are really excited that time and again you come in handy to support us and to engage with us and even to exchange ideas with us. So that's it from us at 12:18. We ought to have finished this at 12:15, but due to the engagement that there was, here we are. Again, thank you so much. See you next time, same place, same time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and go lead with empathy. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.